All right. Good morning, everyone. It looks like it's a clear morning. I love it. The sky is cloudy, but I'm happy that roads are the roads are clear. Yes. All right. So today we're going to talk about historic preservation and restoration. So Baker College had a class that was specifically called that, and I taught that class for about 7 years. And it's crazy how many Michigan buildings are designated historic, either at the national level or within the state. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the question is, at some point, do you know, preserve what's already there and try to, fix it, or do you take it out and replace it with something that's more modern but looks like it did, before. So that's always the big question on some of these older buildings. If something's dry rotted out and it's beyond repair, then you try to restore it with something that's similar to what it was. I used to live right next to a one-room schoolhouse. I was on the historic board, and we had to replace the roof, but it had gone so far that um, it was too hard to repair. So we spent the extra money to get the cedar shakes, which is a very not used because it's so expensive that the only buildings were at Greenfield Village. And we actually had to find somebody from who did work there to do the work. So long story short, because we did end up doing it that way, it might cost a little bit more because of the restoration, techniques and that were of the past are no longer with us now. So you have to find, craftsmen that can do that work. And we're going to also find out that there are entire committees and councils that are designated to do that, to preserve our history, to bring in that, maintain that cultural heritage. So historic preservation is saving our past, our cultural heritage, our historic environments. We have a lot of communities that are still maintained in Michigan that we're going to be taking a look at. It is concerned with conservation, maintenance, protection. Protection's a big one, and repair of our built and human environment. So when you clean something, you also have to be aware of it, because a lot of these, power washings will just destroy an entire wall if you're not, thinking about how you're going to clean it or restore it. Historic buildings provide a link to our past, creating a sense of place in time. So you'll see a lot of communities are based on some kind of landmark that is historic, that kind of like uh, remind us of our past. There's a motivation for communities and involvement and spirit. Historic preservation considers our past craftsmanship, building materials, tools, and construction methods. It does offer tax incentives and funding possibilities, and it's in line with we recycle structures into other use. Um, Being able to take a building type and restore it into another one. And that's actually something we start with in the sustainable class. If you haven't taken that class yet, we research these buildings that are reused in like old cathedrals that are turned into nightclubs, which are really awesome, by the way. If you get a chance to go to a concert, might not be the music that you listen to, but I did get a chance to go to something. I think it was called Clutch Cargos or something like that. It was a church that was turned into a nightclub, and wow, was that ever just a beautiful, beautiful experience. So we try to save our buildings in that way as well. And with the leadership for energy and environmental design ratings more and more to become a green green, recognized as being a green building, you get points for being able to preserve as much as you can of the original building, but it's not in line with the, being, historic preservation. It's more about saving material and not have to, recycle it, but it all blends together. Let me see, there we go. So historic preservation is not just about buildings, but it also includes historic sites, entire communities, districts. We have a lot of districts in Detroit, historic canals, farms, landscapes, industry, lighthouses. Michigan has the most lighthouses of any state. I looked it up one time. I thought maybe Florida had more, but no. Michigan has like, I don't know, I forgot the number. I think it's like 140 something.
There's like hundreds and hundreds all across the state.
I looked it up. It was like 100 and something, 140 something, and Florida. What's that?
Is that all that's left?
It's all this. If you look at a map, it's crazy how many lighthouses we have. Railroads, rivers, scenic views, archaeological ruins, archaeological. Yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce it. All part of the cultural heritage. Guys, if you look at these pictures, the one on the bottom right there, the East Point Halfway Schoolhouse, 1872. You see that building structure that's in the bottom right corner? That was my garage. And and you see how it's curved, like the roof is curved. All of that was preserved. In the inside, it was a wood attic that was curved wood, and it was believed that my garage was the first schoolhouse while they were building this one. So there's a kind of a connection to it. It's very well preserved. I don't know what they're doing now, but I had like when I created this fence, I made sure there was a little passageway there where I could go over there in the schoolhouse. If you get a chance to tour any of these old schoolhouses, we used to have tours in here. And it's interesting to see that all the students went into one schoolhouse with different rows that were the grades, where the little kids were like kindergarten in the front and like high schoolers in the back. It was a different world, right? So we have districts like the Palmer Woods Historic District is a residential district here on 7 Mile and Woodward. And there are a lot of, well-known here, historic, national registered places, including this design of Frank Lloyd Wright there in that Palmer Woods district. I did document a few other designs here. We've been working with the Tudor revival and the shingle style. If you drive through that district, there are several others that you'll see all of these different homes. 289 of them are within this area, 7 Mile and Woodward. We have the Boston Edison Historic District in the heart of Detroit, 900 homes there, ranging from 2-story to mansion like. But within those, you'll see all of these kind of famous houses like Henry Ford House, and they have also, and you can see, okay, this is a little bit different. Let me just get that out of there, guys, if you don't mind me doing that. Let me just take a look here. There it is. Yeah, this is a little bit outdated. So there we go. Missed that one. Missed that one. But I think what I'll do is this so that I can update it as I go. There we go. But they do have tours of some of these districts and well worth it. As a student, I was on these AAS, it's American Institute of Architecture Students board. I've been looking at bringing one to Macomb. We can, I have that one in place. I just have to work on that. And we would help out with these tours and with the AIA. So there are groups out there that create these tours, so look for them and maybe, take the opportunity to go to them. There's one happening right now for the Guardian Building. If you go online and you look for the Guardian Building tours in Detroit, every weekend they have openings, and I need to get to it myself. I was going to create a time when we could all go there, but I think everyone individually should take the time to go there and take a look at the Guardian Building in Detroit. It's one of the most beautiful buildings, I think, in Detroit. Corktown Historic District is the oldest surviving neighborhood in Detroit from 1834. There's some buildings here with the colonial revival and the late Victorian style. Sherwood Forest. So I'm just talking to you in this PowerPoint about all the different historic districts that are around that you can go look into. Go look into it, see where it's at, and maybe drive around and take a look at some of these real gems, of our buildings of our past. Indian Village, historic building. There are annual tours for sure. One of the houses is the Albert Kahn House there. Okay, uh, so going here away from Detroit, there are other national buildings like George Washington's headquarters during the American Revolutionary War. So some of these have been preserved, which, a group of people get together, they buy it, they're part of some kind of historic board, and they preserve it, they give tours, and eventually, we still have it. In place. First ever property designated as a historic site by the US state, George Washington's Mount Vernon here also in Virginia, that's been preserved. Founded in 1920, the Preservation Society of Charleston, South Carolina is the oldest community-based historic preservation organization in America. So there were some things here that I documented to say that this has been going on for some time. There are also these groups that go in and document buildings, and they propose that there should be landmarks. So that's ongoing. The Historic American Buildings, they're surveying. It's a long name here. Is that federal government program that documents important architectural, engineering, and industrial sites throughout the United States. So they actually go in and they document, they take pictures, they keep everything on file, measured drawings, large format photos, written history about it. I think we do need to document our historic buildings, even if they don't have the landmarks yet, like been designated, because that's how they get designated, right? So remember I was talking to you about the roof. Oh, actually, let me go back to that. I know a sidetrack here. This is the building that had that cedar shake roof on it. And talking about documenting buildings, in order for us to get the funding for that roof, I was on the Historic Society and really saw how many old, beautiful historic Victorian and all different styles, Tudor style in East Point of all places, because it was halfway. It was actually called halfway. It was halfway between Detroit and Mount Clemens. So people settled there, started to create homes. And so I wrote 2 books and had 2 different tours where people could go. I actually was able to go around and talk to all the owners of these old homes, and they agreed to be in the book and part of the tour. So I laid down the plastic, walk, what do they call it? The plastic plastic for people to go into the homes. And actually the books went really well because they had maps of how to go around. So now those two smaller books that I created became a part of this bigger bound book that was about East Point. And so it starts somewhere, right? It starts somewhere with someone recognizing here are some beautiful farmhouses and buildings that we should preserve and document. So I wanted to let you know that the government under this group is doing that. So this is them, going to these buildings and recording the height of lamp posts and photos of it so that they're publicly known as historic value. Okay. So there's a National Register of Historic Places here, authorized under this Preservation Act of 1966. These are some of the Michigan buildings, the General Motors building here, the Guardian building we were just talking about. When you go into the building, you'll see kind of a sign that says that they are nationally known. And that's not a small feat either. Like someone had to document everything about that building and then submit it to be recognized. It's not something you just, automatically ask for and they give it to you. So there is an official list here that will point you to those buildings. Owners of national may be able to obtain federal funding. So, some of the advantages are that you will be able to, get funding to restore it and some tax credits as well. A bronze plaque bearing the name of it is presented to the owner. A designation as a national property to places no obligation or restrictions upon the private owner using private resources to maintain and alter the property. The list is meant to recognize these historic important buildings and should not be confused with the local historic designations, which we're going to be talking about, which can contain restrictive measures. So depending on whether it's national or like local, state, there may be some restrictions. We're going to talk about Michigan and some of those buildings where you can't renovate it, right? So if you have something of historic value, it makes sense that you're not going to be able to tear out a wall or redo the whole porch layout because the idea is that we're preserving it now, right? So that's one downfall if you're, looking at buying something that has that marker. You should look into, how much you can make changes to it because you may have to propose it to the council and get, approval for any kind of changes. Okay. So, Michigan historic marker looks a little different. I'm sure you've seen these maybe, big green signs. There's one outside of the schoolhouse there, and locally, I'm sure you've driven around to see their couple buildings in Fraser, and I'm sure you've seen them. The first official historic landmark in 1955 was the Michigan State University in East Lansing. But more than 1,500 markers have been erected, one of the largest private funded historic marker program in the nation. So I think it's good that we identified all those historic buildings and preserve them. So Michigan historic markers benefit communities, like we said, an entire state by sparking further interest in local history, reflect the importance of community place, like we said, heritage, help discourage some development projects by reminding decision makers that the site is historically significant. There are times when historic buildings are kind of in the way of progress, and if everyone agrees and it's brought to the council, we you know, they will, you know, decide to demolish the building and keep some of the elements. So you'll see a lot of these architectural salvage, you know, markets where they are, their designation is that they sell these historic pieces. So like a small, piece of a cornice from a house in the 1800s might go for hundreds of dollars because people might want to preserve that small piece of it instead of the whole, you know, the whole building. And that's what happens when when people, when places are demolished, everyone tries to get in on the site and take those pieces, so the owner has to like close it off and it becomes quite a market. Okay, we already talked about this, there are also, you know, places that will go around and, document those buildings as well. We do have in Washington Township, the Octagon House. If you haven't had a chance to go there, it is so cool. They have, not only do they have tours, but they have craft shows and things that I think they had a quilt. I went to a quilt blanket display. So they had all these quilt blankets, and I don't know if you've seen quilted blankets, I think it's called. Yeah, my grandma used to make all of those, and it was a big thing, you know, by hand quilted blankets, and they had a show with these outside and in, and so you didn't have to, you know, pay for the tour, but you could go through and see the inside of this building. It's kind of cool. It's actually on Van Dyke. I think north of 20, I don't know, 7, somewhere up there. Okay, the Belle Isle Park here is the nation's oldest conservatory, designed by Albert Kahn. My very first job was in Detroit as a student. I'd been to Macomb for 1 year together. My portfolio and aggressively, interviewed and went for anyone who would hire me. I got it, you know, you guys have to get out there. People, you guys, I'm sorry to say, but there are a lot of you guys that are kind of waiting for it to come on your lap, but or asking me, and you know, people will ask me and they don't even have a resume. Like, come on, get your resume, get your portfolio, you know, go I sent more than 20 resumes, but at the place I worked with in Detroit, we worked on this building. We did some of the restoration, so it's so cool to be a part of that. And then just recently they did it again, so I really want to get back there and go there and take a look at, you know, what they did. A few other buildings here, the Grosse Pointe Academy, and of course, a lot of the churches. If you go through and take a look, there've been some churches that are designated like this. I think the church that's down at Trappers Alley, beautiful church, right at the end of the Trappers Alley. Greektown, sorry, Greektown. At the end of Greektown, there's beautiful church there that I used to go to. As we went to Greektown, and it used to be called Trappers Alley. That where now there's a casino there, I think.
Yeah.
Where you pick up the people mover.
Yep.
Yeah, it was called Trappers Alley. It was such a beautiful place. It was like, I think it still is, where you can walk between these two buildings, it was like an alley that was restored with walkways from one building to another. Another kind of cool place to go if you get a chance to go to Greektown and walk through there. I used to bring my kid and we would get on the people mover, go around once and come back. It was kind of fun. GM Tech Center, Etzel Ford, you know, they still have tours of this house. Um, the kids' playhouse was like, it was kind of a copy of the house and like a little tiny house of its own. So if you get a chance to go to any tours like this, it's kind of interesting to really to take a look at those. Okay, So rehabilitation is defined as the process of returning a property to the state of utility through repair or alterations, blah, blah, blah. So the idea is to determine if, if it can be restored. And then you can also submit for, support, financial support, or some kind of tax break. Uh, But you have to be careful about the sandblasting of these historic bricks because look, it's really ruining this this brick. I think I have another. Oh, here it's coming up. Okay. So 10 basic principles created to help preserve the district character of the historic buildings and the site while allowing for reasonable change to meet new needs. Don't think I want to read all of these, but I'll kind of give you a summary of them. So I had to fill out forms for this for that historic building one time, and so each one of these needed to be answered. So a property shall be used for the historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change. That's the main thing, minimal change to define characteristics of it. The historic charter of property shall be retained, okay, so the historic character is going to be retained. Okay. Property is recognized by its physical record of its time. Most properties can change over time. Those changes that have acquired their significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. So there's kind of a list of things. Distinctive features, construction techniques shall be preserved. So these are, things that we have to abide by. Um, Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. So that's kind of a big question. Do you repair it or do you replace it? And it goes into detail a little bit about, how bad it needs to be in order to replace it. Chemical or physical treatments such as sandblasting shall not be used. Significant resources to protect it, and new additions shall not destroy the historic materials that characterize the property. So, yeah, you'll see a lot of historic buildings that have these more modern add-ons, and they weren't preserved. So we want to try to do that. New additions or an adjacent or related new constructions shall be undertaken in such manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity would be unimpaired. So yeah, some restrictions that are on us if we do have a historic home or building that we own. National Trust for Historic Preservation. I used to be a member of this and I got their magazine every month. Pretty interesting to see how many we have. We have a lot of really great historic places out there. So go to their website, take a look. Every year they do like a top 10 historic findings of that year. And they also put together a list of buildings that should be preserved or designated with the marker, and then that group goes after being able to decide on which ones to preserve. Okay, so because we're losing a lot of them too, as you can imagine, over time, you can only save so many, right? So there's the mission of that we just. So I'm reading this because this is one of our assignments. Or I should open that up pretty soon here for you guys to work on it. But I wanted you to kind of pay attention to, what we're working with. Um, The National Historic Trust for Historic Preservation has these endangered places, and down at the bottom, it is reasonable to ask, why preserve? When faced with the decision of what to do with an older property, the downside of Tennessee, however, is that we lose part of history every time we demolish an old building. Without the old structures, cities take on a different character. Neighborhoods lose their identity. We more easily forget those who went before us. Each time an old building is torn down, one of our cultural roots is go. Now, not everyone believes in that, so that's why I wanted, we're going to take a look at that. So, preservation strives to use the original materials. Restoration, you're trying to bring back a building and how it looked at some point. Just very quickly, we're going to go through a few things to restore the stained glass. We have different methods of it. There's a whole list of things to be able to do to, bring that back. I won't go through all of this, but there is that bandage approach. Do you do it half-assed, sorry, or do you, really spend the time and the funding to restore it properly? Long-term restorations is what we're looking for. Lead-based paint, we do need to know about all these materials that are a part of the older homes. If a historic place is one of 50 years old, this means that almost every historic house contains some lead-based paint. So, there are some rules in place with that. It's almost better not to disturb it, and some people will just cover it, cover it up. So better to cover it up than sometimes to spend the resources to process to remove it. Okay. There was this, right. So then you have to pay for the scanning of this. Yeah. So that, yeah. So I just want to show you some pictures of this, and some things have been destroyed here with the high water pressure, like scarring the concrete or sandblasting that kind of pulls some of that brick out of there. So if you're ever a part of this type of restoration, you be mindful of what kind of process that we're using. Decorative pressed metal interior and exterior features should not be cleaned abrasively, which makes sense, right? You're gonna, destroy it. Decorative wood exterior should not be abrasively, so the wood will just, split off. Cast iron may be cleaned, but must be painted immediately to preserve the rust. And there's a whole thing on asbestos. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I think you've learned about asbestos in other classes that it's a potential hazard. So we want to be able to identify that when we're working with older homes. And a part of the history of our buildings built with asbestos all around us, and having the knowledge of how to work with it, around it, right? Lawrence Tech. Let's see here. Oh, right.
Sample,
Yeah.
I guess, for assignment.
Um, this is Lawrence Tech's. Lawrence Tech has a lot of buildings that they own, and the one that I've been really working with, and I don't know if I have it on this one. No, it's the Affleck House, the Affleck Frank Lloyd Wright House that they own off of Woodward. I used to be the curator for that. So I had to kind of like study all the details of the house, Frank Lloyd Wright, and then I would take tours through it. It was kind of fun, guys. If you're looking for something fun to do, you know, I knew everything about that Affleck house, and when I brought tours through, I could kind of like point out little things, and every time I did, everyone was like, "Oh, yay, cool!" You know, that's what Frank Lloyd did. So like maybe look into that. No, I think I just documented Lawrence Tech because I went there after I went to Macomb. Um, and some of the buildings at Lawrence Tech. That's why I have this slide here with some of the drafting down here and the original schoolhouse that was off campus, and that was the original school years ago. Of course, you know, oh man, I was there were only 2 women that graduated with me out of maybe 600. So at that time in 89. It's changed since then. A lot more women are in the field. All right, so when we talk about here, historic preservation or restoration, we are talking about history of our architecture and heritage. Uh, I do have a couple of assignments for you to work on so that you can think about it and do a little research. So I'm going to go ahead and open those up and talk to you about those. So the first one here, I'll just open both of those so that I can view it as a student and make sure that I'm looking at and you're looking at the same thing. Great. So today we took a look at historic preservation and restoration, and I'm just, you know, just like I talked to someone in the classroom right there about about how sometimes we have some classes have midterms and exam and finals, and it ends up this class is that one where we have assignments each week that center around the topics, but we won't have like a final exam, but we will have a project that for you to work on based on what your interests are. So I always try to bring it back to you guys, you know, enjoying your assignments because I'm giving you the choice, right? To to decide and to think about it. So let's take a look at assignment 16. Assignment 16, I'm going to download it. You can download it with this little, you know, arrow there. And then I'll come over here. This is how I do it because when I click on that, I go to, well, where is it? Okay, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'll go over here to downloads and then I'll just open it up here. Okay. So assignment 16. Create a paragraph or two about the topic below. Your grade is based on how well you answered the question and your individual viewpoint and observations about the discussion topic. So here, not a big deal, guys. You don't have to write 5 pages. If you want to research a little bit and find similar writings based on your view, you can, but this is in your own words. Is it reasonable to ask why preserve when faced with the decision of what to do with an older property? So you're at an older property, you maybe own it, or you're helping a client with it. Is preservation important to you? Why and or why not? What's your honest opinion about saving older buildings? Discuss what some of the advantages and disadvantages are when making the decision to demolish and build with modern architecture technology or preserve older buildings. Show an example to support your theory. So the example could just really be a discussion about a building out there or elements that were under some open discussions of whether or not they should preserve it or not. Or it's just a picture of something that's beautiful that you're looking at to say, wow, you know, wouldn't it be terrible if we destroy this? Or it might be a picture that shows something that's god awful looking that you're like saying, these are not things that we want to keep in our neighborhoods, because although it's historic, we want to move forward with, better looking structures. So whatever your opinion is, I'm not judging it. This is you thinking about it, maybe doing a little research, or you don't have to think too much on it. It's just a paragraph or a few statements that tell me, your overall opinion about historic homes. You can copy paste, but make sure that it's mostly your point of view. Any questions about this? Any questions about this assignment? Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look over here at the next assignment. This is just meant to have you think about it, right? All right, because we are architecture students, we are going to be faced with some of these things, and your opinion might change over time. Right now, you might be all modernist, let's just take them down, and let's build new. We don't need to have, all these historic land sites. And sometimes if we have too many, that's why that National Trust, they go through and they say, do we really need this one? Do we really not need this one? So we have to be careful. Okay, let's take a look at the second assignment. The second assignment is a little less, your opinion. If it is your choice. So you're going to, I probably should, okay, I'm gonna show you an example. Guys, I do need to change this to say that it should be a PowerPoint, so we can pull all the PowerPoints together. Create a PowerPoint slide. We have been using PowerPoint, so PowerPoint slide. Right, and I know I have to go back and get that in here as well. Let me just leave this, take a minute to put that in here so that people who see this, okay. 1 or 2 PowerPoint slides. I know I didn't make this as a shared one because I think I'd like everybody to kind of do their own, and then I can pull them together and take a look at them. So let's open up this one. Where are we? There we are. I have it open twice. Okay, let me just make sure. I only have. Oh, okay. Hold on. I just want to make sure I. There we go. Okay. So create a PowerPoint slide or two that includes a building that is documented. So here it is. Historic preservation. Historic. Either national or Michigan state. I'm not gonna say Michigan because you might find something out there that's like in other state, that's state. Either take a picture or research the internet to find a local building that has been, you know what, you're right. I did say Michigan. Michigan, guys, we're adding on Michigan. 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 Okay, take a picture or research the internet to find a local building that has been maintained and preserved as a historic landmark in Michigan. I'm going to show you examples of what we've done in the past. Document its location from information about the building, including the architectural style, how it has been preserved or restored. So located in Michigan, of historical significance, has been preserved or restored to maintain original historic content. You'll know that it is has been preserved or restored, because there'll either be an article on it or it will have a marker. If it has a designated national or Michigan marker, then it has been. So, Michigan or national, whoops, adding to the marker. I'm giving you more details as I'm going over it. Historic, oh, marker. So here it is, and you'll have one or two slides. Just pick one building. It's located in Michigan. It has historical significance. It has a Michigan or National Historic Marker, which means it has been preserved or restored to maintain original historic content. So I don't even know if I need that in there, but you know, something that's designated historic in Michigan. There's so many out there, guys. Oh my gosh. You'll do research and you'll find that there's just an overwhelming amount. So find something that you kind of like that's in Michigan. And I'm hoping that we have different ones, but like I said, I didn't make this a shared file so that you can kind of like go find the one that interests you. And did I say building? I did say building. I should go back to include and to say that there's a whole list of things right here that it could be. So, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Just to give you an idea that didn't do this the last time, as you can see. Oh, okay, well, let me just do this. Get out of there. All right, so it could include, right, so it doesn't have to be a building. It could include some of these things that you find in Michigan. Either take a picture of the research, local building, or below. I'm not changing anything about it. I'm just putting like more details, and then I'll go ahead and post this one. Does that make sense? Any questions about this? This one? I'm gonna give you some examples of it, though. Just give me a minute here. I'm going to just take this out and insert this new one that I modified. I think it was underdone. Yep. Let me just make sure. Insert document. Okay. So is this one that was just changed? Yep. 1004. Couldn't get any more closer than that. It's 1004. All right, so now all of that updated information is in there for you to, and anyone else who isn't here today to see. This. Okay, so I just wanted to show you here. This is actually something that
Can't see it.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna try it. No, you can't see it, but I don't know if I really want to show you this one, but I think there's too much writing on some of these, to be honest with you. But this was my document that shows a picture and some information about the different buildings. So if you find something like this one's in Mount Clemens, I think this one's in Grosse Pointe, I don't know. And then you put a little paragraph there and you document information about it, then that works for me. I don't want to go into detail about that, but you decide on the design of it. Because I'm going to take these slides and pull them all together into one document. so that we're not working on a shared file, but each individual student will work on 1 or 2 slides. And then I will take a look at bringing those together. Okay, so what do you think, guys? Pretty cool? Yeah? Yeah, pretty cool information, and also kind of recognize that there are a lot of historic buildings in our Michigan, and historic preservation or restoration is a part of our history for sure. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead. Any questions or comments, anything about the assignments that you have a question on? I'm looking at the chat there, if anyone wants to put their mics on. Um, students used to actually stay at the Affleck House over there while we were at Lawrence Tech. In fact, faculty did. There's a small little apartment in the basement of it that nobody really knows about. It's small, but they did have people staying there. Okay, well, guys, have a great week. I think that the sun is coming back out. We're supposed to get 50 degrees. Like we were saying, you never know with Michigan whether you need your winter coat and your scarf. I have 2 hooks by my back door. One hook has my winter coat and my scarf. The other hook has my spring, spring jacket.
Same day.
Yeah, sometimes in the same day, it's 24 degrees in there. I think one day it was like 24 degrees in the morning and 55 degrees by the afternoon. Right, so can you go ahead and stop? Guys, have a good week.